Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the 2-Point Conversion Monday Night Football. Dan is confused. I'm also confused. I'm confused why Dan is confused. But I'm here. Kyle Sumner, can Dan not hear me right now?
Kyle's frozen.
Oh, I'm frozen. Uh-oh. Well, I don't think I'm frozen, so this is interesting how this is going. I'm not sure if anyone can hear me right now.
All right, Elsa. How are you, Kyle?
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Mate, your screen is freezing up.
You sure?
100%.
Oh, me? I'm doing great. Yeah, it's Packers versus Giants tonight, but that no one cares about that. Everyone is really here for the Vikings, or not Vikings. I was gonna say Minnesota, the Miami Titans.
No. We're here for the Vikings. We're not here for the rest of this shit.
Oh wait, that was last week. Yeah, or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago we had the Vikings game, but no. Yeah. This episode's going awesome. Yeah, we don't have Gladys, but Dan and I are here. We'll do our best on Monday night. This doubleheader, so it's typical going for two. We've got 2 games, only 2 hosts, and I guess we should get to those games just because we got 2 games to cover. So before we do, well, since Dan is here, let's give us a good rant, Dan, if there is any you want.
How about Patrick Mahomes go fuck yourself? How about them? How about that? Like, the dude was offside. Like, fucking Stevie Wonder could see that. Like, he's off. He's off. Like, he's offside. There's a, like, soccer has VAR, right? That's offside. He's off. There's no going back on that. He's off. And it couldn't happen on Giants night to a better person than that dickwad, Kadarius Toney. He thought he was better than a whole franchise, and turns out he's just a big pile of shit. So, yeah, very happy that he's the guy that cost him a game, and he's the guy that's cost him a chance at winning the AFC West, because Denver, if anything, are a better team at the moment. I couldn't be happy that happened to them. And Patrick Mahomes, piss off. Like, come on, man. Stop being a whinging fuck. Own your shit. You should have seen he was offside for starters. Like, come on, man. And to be fair, you're at home? They were at home yesterday, right?
Yeah, so shouldn't have the crowd noise.
That's really, like, on you, man. Like, you should have seen that. Like, don't turn to the refs and say, you should have told us he was offside. Like, no, he doesn't have to tell you shit. The dude is offside. He should have known better. You should have known better. Andy should have seen better. Don't say I was waiting for the refs to tell me. No, it's like, they don't have to tell you shit. They don't have to tell you shit. They can tell you if they want. They have a few times, but no, go, like, fuck off. Like, don't be this whinging fuck. You're meant to be better than this. Like, it's just annoying. Oh man, the referees and the officials. Think about every bad call that we've seen this year, and like, you're the guy that's slighted. What was it, like 2-3 weeks ago? Philadelphia went through a game without one flag called on them. Right? That team, who they play that week? Was it Dallas they played that week?
Was that the Buffalo game?
Like, yes, Buffalo. That's a team.
That game went to overtime and they still didn't have a flag on them.
Buffalo should be complaining about officiating, right? To not have a team in your home flag to not call, that's a problem, right? But to have an actual call because it was an actual problem called, I don't know. Seems like the rules kind of held up on that one. I guess that's what they're in place for. It's just kind of madness.
Yeah, without rules, what would we have? I mean, on this show, we've got rules, right? Every week, we pick a spread, pick the team against the spread, pick the higher or lower on the points total, and pick a player prop. And that's what all 3 of us have been doing all year. And we've been sticking to those rules, following those rules, even without Gladys. Even if Gladys couldn't provide picks, we still provided picks for her.
That's right.
What we did is we Dan and I just quickly went through the result, like, what she had picked before, tendencies. She has picked a lot more underdogs than favorites, so giving her the 2 underdogs in this one. She, by a small margin, picked more highers than lowers this year, so we gave her both highers. And then player props, we took 2 positions that she was commonly picking from, and so we think we played Gladys's tendencies, right? But I guess we're bending the rules a little bit in terms of making our picks. But yeah, I'm sure Gladys would look at those picks and be happy with them.
I don't think she'd hate them, to be honest with you.
She'd hate being kidnapped more, which I don't think she's been kidnapped, Jamie. She did tell us that she wasn't going to be on, but I suppose maybe that's what the hostages told her to say. I don't know. Hope she's not. Be safe, Gladys.
She's doing her thing.
They let her message us to say she wouldn't be available, but they wouldn't let her make picks. So
yeah,
no courtesy by them if that is
absolute animals. That's just the worst. That's horrible.
Well, animals, they probably hate dogs and they hate underdogs. But if you like underdog, you can use the promo code in fancy writing lettering here in GF2. If you haven't yet joined Underdog, like those kidnappers who don't know Underdog, like they should probably get on this. And if you are listening, kidnappers, when you join, use the promo code GF2. And if you're kidnapping, I'm assuming that, you like money and stuff. That's ransoms and things. So if you like money, anyone who likes money, again, use this promo code GF2 and you will get free money. They will double whatever you deposit, up to $100. So if you put $100 in that initial Underdog deposit, Underdog Fantasy will give you an extra $100 free, $200 in your account to use on various games, NFL contests, NBA, NHL. There's a women's hockey league starting. I think the WNBA will be over a while before that. But yeah, use promo code GF2, scan the QR code. Dan wants me to get amongst it and out of this ad and into the team talk.
I'm terrified of the amount of different sports that could be on Underdog that you would promote. I'll give you that.
They really should have curling out there. The Grand Slam events and, of course, the Scotties and the Briar.
You know what I love? I'd love it if curling was on there, but then curling got caught up in some gambling controversy. Some match fixing in the curling leagues in Canada. That'd be amazing. We suspended all bets. Your best ball leagues are going to be refunded in full. People just mad everywhere.
Yeah, lots of curling fans would be enraged. That's for sure.
That'd be called up.
Yeah, but I guess talking about matches, talking about games, let's get to I'd say our first game. I think they're starting at the same time. It is the holidays, so we're using this fancy lettering and font here, so hopefully people can understand it. But Tennessee Titans at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins are 14-point favorites, and the higher-lower is set at 46.5. So Dan, and you've got everyone who watches the Going for Two Live network on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter as well, X. Can't see your comments there, but if you want to join the comments like Jamie, head to those other sources. YouTube, subscribe there. But lots of shows on the Going for Two Live network, including Dam's B-League's Pick'em Show.
Yeah, I should be on this one.
We'll find out. That's as much drama as everything else. But since you like making picks and pick'ems, why don't you lead us off here in this Titans Dolphins game? What do you want to start with?
So we go with picks. Or we go with odds and bets. What do you want to go with first?
I was offering to say what you wanted to go with first, but I think.
Let's go with the lines and all that. I feel like we can get to the props a little later. We can work on that. So, in terms of the Titans this year, they're a very Jekyll and Hyde team. You can see that with how they play, but their tells are incredibly obvious. Just for example, the Titans this year are 4-8. However, they're 0-6 on the road. They have a road game today. They're playing the number 2 seed in the AFC. We can put the pieces together as easy as we want on this one. The Titans are on the road, who haven't won on the road this year, against probably the best team in the AFC. I think we can call this one a win to the Dolphins. I feel pretty comfortable in that one. We can look at the Titans again, and they're fairly obvious with what they do. They're 5-7 against the spread. But they're 1-5 as an away team. They are an away team. Okay. Over and under. 6-6. They've hit evens on that, and they're 4-2 over on the road. So I've looked at this, and I'm going to tell you my pick at the end. I'm going to go with the Dolphins, just so we have an idea on where they're at. 9-3, 5-0 at home. Against the spread, 8-4, 4-1 as a home favourite. Over and under, 7-5 over, 3-2 as a home favourite. So we know that the Dolphins, as a home favourite, will cover the spread. We're currently at a spread of 14. Now, the Titans, I've looked at this, and I kind of feel like that is an incredibly high marker. So I'm going to give the Titans something that they haven't done this year. I'm going to give them a gift. They're going to get their second game covering the spread this year at 14. They're going to hold true on that. I'm going to go higher though. So with the higher of 46.5, I feel like they can. I mean, the Titans, there's just such a weird team because Arthur Smith left and they look like he's still there. Is that a weird thing to say?
I feel like
literally looks like the same team.
I feel like there's a reason Vrabel wanted Arthur Smith as his head coach. Like this is the perfect type of offensive coordinator, not head coach, offensive coordinator.
It's such a bland team to watch, and you've got a heavy hitting running back, a fantastic wide receiver, and you got ancillary pieces that can chip in. And Treylon Burks has done sweet FA, so it's a shame for him. Like everyone thought maybe he'd recover. He's not recovering well this year. It's like Nico Westbrook, or it's Chris Moore's kind of chipped in as well, and Chico Conquo. Like there's other dudes that are there that have kind of popped up. But for the most part, the play calling is simple. Tajay Spears has had a decent year as well for a rookie. He's been a pretty good run this year. So, you look at the Dolphins, this game should be going over. I feel like the Titans aren't bad enough to not be able to keep up, or at least keep it within 10 to 12. Slow pace of game with the Titans. They're good for it. They're going to bring it right down. They're not always going to convert. They're going to take time off the clock. They're going to be one of those teams where this could just be an absolute shocker. I think the idea of Will Levis, he has that pop in him. We saw that last week. He can do it. He has his moments of being able to go long and getting to a guy that's open. He has some decent moments. He's flashed for a guy that wasn't giving the starting job week 1. And it's a shame because a full preseason of him getting reps and work with the ones, that'd be interesting to see next year. I think that's an incredible guy to have a look at as a breakout guy for 2024. But Derrick Henry's on his last legs. He doesn't look that great. DeAndre Hopkins has moments, but as a collective, they're decent enough to be able to keep Miami within touching distance. I don't think they're going to be within 10, but 14 seems. It's like, okay, Miami can hammer anyone. That seems a bit aggressive, even for me.
It's a good enough defense to where they might not be able to do everything they want to.
Yeah, Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry, I think Harold Landry, they got some good players that are there. But their secondary is kind of trash. You're going to talk about Roger McCreary soon enough. He's had a pretty good year, I think. But other bits and pieces just haven't stepped up enough for them. And that's a shame because they really should have. It's like the Colts and the Jaguars aren't that far in front enough for me to believe that in a year's time, Tennessee aren't in that mix again. And that says something too. I don't think Vrabel gets the sack. I don't think he'll be around for another year. This is probably his worst year as a head coach with the Titans. I don't think they'd get rid of him after one bad year. But they need to do something else. They need to get Will Levis some options. They need to get him some help. And they've got to shore up that secondary. If they can do that, hey, Will's up. They'll be a decent team in 2024. I don't think they're that far away because they've been pretty good the last couple of seasons, to be fair. We'll give them some credit. But, for what it's worth, Miami are just on another level at this point. But plus 14, it's just, I don't know. I can't go past that at this point. That's a lot. That is a lot. If it was like 9.5, I could say, yeah, okay, fine, Dolphins, let's go. But 14 is just.
Apparently 10, because last week you and Gladys, or even, last week with 10 was too much. Sorry. I was brave enough to take the 10 point spread at the Jags, and that burned me, and you guys both got it as 10-point favorites there. And those have been the two highest spreads so far in Monday Night Football. Last week's Jags by 10, this week's Dolphins by 14. So I think just for that, it's also a little too high for me.
Yeah, it's not like a clean sweep that gave you an extra prop or anything. It's not like I did that, but whatever.
But all three of us are going with the Titans as 14-point underdogs. Now, all of us, in terms of like three on the show that are co-hosts, JB, who's almost basically part of the show, is not. He thinks Miami will win 84-3. So not only will he have the Dolphins covering the 14-point spread four times over, but
send Jamie the link. Let's get Jamie on. Jamie, get in here.
Yeah, if you want, Jamie.
84-3.
A little bit, but that also means again, he'll have he'll have the Dolphins. He'll take that there, and then he'll also take the higher lower, the 46.5 higher lower. Jamie says is covering, which you also agree with, Dan. You took higher.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I think part of what you were saying about like the Titans slowing the game down, keeping it lower. I wonder if that also does keep this game total just under that 46.5. Again, I typically go low for almost everything. I also don't know that the Titans offense I have enough faith in. Like, Dolphins defense can be good. There are some good pieces.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned someone's injured.
Jalen Phillips, unfortunately, Achilles a few weeks ago. Prime time.
Right, yeah.
But then we just saw. I just looked at it before. Javon Holland's injured as well.
The Canadian. Damn.
Well.
I was gonna wear my Canada hat, but of course, there's something supersedes it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can see the difference. You could see when Miami didn't have Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey when they come back in. It's just a different team. Like they make a big impact, and luckily for Tennessee, that might not matter too much. But again, I can see Levis being good enough with Hopkins to make those splash plays. I can see Chris Moore maybe getting away once. He's good for that. Like they've got it in them to be. I mean, the term back home would be arsey. They're an arsey team at times, and I could see them getting away with that. But I don't think they're bad enough to not be able to convert either. Like at some point, Derrick Henry will take over and he'll get through, right? That kind of happens still. Not as much this year as it has in the past. I don't think it's been the best year for him, but he's more than capable of raking one through, catching a screen and going for 40 or 50. We've seen him do that before, and that's within his range. And if he does that, they're going to compete. They might have to get competitive. They might have to be creative. They're going to have to keep up with Miami. So I don't think I could see them being a slower team as normal, but at some point they're going to have to put their foot down and go, and that's part of the game there as well.
Which is again why you're going higher. So while we all three of us agree on the Titans, you and Gladys will take the higher there than the 46.5. Again, we're going with Gladys's tendencies. She's slightly leaned towards the higher over the lower, so she's just not here to make things.
Yeah, I think they're bad.
Pose those upon her. Sorry, Gladys, if you don't like it.
Yeah, I think the Titans are bad enough to lose, but they're good enough to cover 14 and 46.5. So we'll go with that.
Yeah, I guess so. We'll get to props here. I suppose JB, if he thinks Hill gets 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, probably go higher on all the Hill props. You can just do a parlay with a bunch of Hill props, and you'll probably hit them all if that's your call there. But I suppose I'll start here because you hinted at the player name already. Roger McCreary, safety for the Titans. And I looked up, he's played 10 games this year, and his solo plus assisted tackle number is set at 4.5. And I looked 6 times this year he's gone over and 4 times under, so it's a positive tendency. There weren't a ton of those in these games. A lot of these lines, this far in the season, they get better and better, right? So a lot of these lines are really tough. This was the one where I like a low total line. There was the thought that this would be our last episode, and it's been a bit since I went for a defensive player. Eagles-Chiefs game, funny enough.
We generally hit when we go IDP as well. That's the cool thing about this as well. I feel like this is something over the next year. It's something that people need to really pay attention to, because I feel like there's good money to be made from IDP options with underdog or gambling props as such. And there's some really good resources out there to help you get to that point. But even tonight, we can say McCreary is a very good option. I could say to you, Nick Chubb over half a sack. I feel like that's pretty good. Zach Sealer over half a sack, I feel like is a good option. There's some good options in terms of players out there. I think Pinnock is at 3.5. I think Solos, that feels like a good option to me as well. There's some good options for IDP that seem more attainable in a good matchup than maybe the offensive side of the ball could be. We can't just, you look at the Giants options. We're going to talk about the Giants soon. Me and Kyle both looked at these Giants options and went, what the hell are we about to do with this? Because this is just trash. How do we help Gladys pick her pick? Because we're looking at it going, well, this is what she would normally do. How do we even quantify it? Because is AJ Dillon even playing? I think he's out, right?
No, Dillon's playing. It's Aaron Jones is out.
Aaron Jones is out. You're starting to look at it and you're going, well, how do we?
I thought I saw that. Yeah.
No, I saw someone saying AJ was out.
Active. Yeah. Jair Alexander, Aaron Jones are both out. Christian Watson and Quay Walker, but AJ Dillon is playing. So
a few good players for the Packers out tonight.
They didn't even have running back props at all for any of them. And I think they knew Jones wouldn't play, and they were afraid to set Dillon's lines too low.
Oh, because how could you? Because you're damned if they set it too hot. He's too obvious. He's either not.
I wonder if there are Dillon lines now, though. Now that we know Aaron Jones out, now they've put him extra high, which would mean I probably want to not lean towards them anyway.
I'll tell you what. Let me crack into that. How about you keep talking about Roger McCreary, because I'd like to.
Well, yeah, so looking at our tendencies, like Dan was right. I think if I calculated this correctly, 9 times we've gone IDP between the three of us, and we've hit the over on 4 of them, or sorry, 5 of them, or we've successfully hit 5 of them and not messed up 4 times essentially. So
Mario Davis got me on 1 tackle. It was a half a tackle. I remember that. Mario Davis killed me. I remember this game. There are AJ Dillon props. We'll talk about them in a bit. We'll get to that.
it was Quay Walker, I think.
Off you, Quay Walker. Yeah.
For me, it was it's funny. It was your team. You missed on my team with Quay Walker. I missed on your team with Leonard Williams. You didn't get the 3 tackles that 1 week.
And that's why we shipped him off to Seattle, Kyle. We knew about him screwing you over, and we said, nah, enough. We can't have that. Seattle, off you go. And he's looked absolute trash ever since he went. So, great.
Yeah, I'm not taking Leonard Williams, even if we do a show next week with Seattle. Which is was supposed to be a Chiefs-Patriots game, but...
You got lucky on that one. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Seahawks, Eagles instead. But yes, why don't we get to your player prop, Dan? You're not similar to Jamie he wants to talk about a Dolphins receiver.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it kind of went down to like what's available for us to have a look at and how do we exploit anything. And if we feel like this game's going over, we can assume that there's lots of passing. I feel confident about Miami in that regard. So for me, I went Jalen Waddle higher than 5 receptions, which is funny because I have an IDP game tonight, a matchup to get into a playoff, and I have Waddle and he has McCreary. So maybe a little bit of psychosomosis there in that regard. But you look at Waddle lately, he hasn't really lit the world on fire, but he's been plugging away as a really nice compliment to Tyreek Hill. They felt like they were a little bit more in tune or closer together last year to an extent, but Tyreek Hill this year has been just something different. And you can't hold that against Waddle for not having the numbers like you see for Tyreek Hill. Waddle, 6 of his last 8 games, he's gone over 5 receptions, and he's had 4 from 8 for 6 or more. So he's in the ballpark of going 5 or higher, as it would be. So I'm going to take that and go over in that regard. He's playing a team that's given up the 6th most receptions to the position. They're at about 14.5 receptions per game. While playing 1 game less, this is currently the 3rd highest on average per week. So he's playing against a team that will allow receptions to wide receivers. He's going against a team who, despite 1 game less, has the 3rd highest average, giving him up to the position, and we're looking at a game which is going over. So I feel kind of good in that regard for Waddle. Jamie likes a Waddle touchdown. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that too. I could see like something stupid like Braxton Berrios as well. I could see a Berrios touchdown in there as well, like from the slot. Miami's going to run away with it, like in the early 4th. It's Braxton Berrios day, something weird like that's going to happen in that regard. But yeah, like Waddle, he has these weird games where like he either blows up or he's kind of, I don't want to put him in that bracket, but he's almost in that Deontay Johnson bracket, which is a dangerous place to be because Johnson at some point, you look at what he does, he's like 5 for 55. Not inspiring, but it's, PPR, it's like 12, 13 points depending on your settings. But it's kind of like, okay, well, you're consistent, but how do you take the next step and get better in that regard? It's kind of hard to see with what he's been up to. And I think it's mattered with what Tyreek's done. And then you add into the run game, it's taken away from a lot of what he could be doing because the run game's blown up. You don't need to throw the ball if you've got a running back taking it 70 yards to the house either. So it's kind of happened to him in that regard. Those games have happened. And yeah, kind of weird. He's had some injury-plagued games as well where he gets hit and you're like, oh, there he goes. He's out. He's back in, but he's not really. A bit of an up and down year for him this year. So I feel like now's the time for him to get right, get consistent. Titans secondary to cure. That will ail you, I think. I like it for Waddle this week.
One thing I'll say about the touchdowns is, so I think you just mentioned it, like the secondary. I think we would say, just looking at the defense overall, the Titans have a much better run defense than they do have a pass defense.
Yeah, I mean, they can get to the quarterback. They got some really good players on that interior. They're good. Shair's had a good year as well. Like, he's kind of broken out as a...
10 tackles was a little much. I prefer the McCreary 4.5. But
yeah, I know. But like even still, like a guy that's kind of been around the league with San Fran to Chicago, now back down to Tennessee. Like he's been around the league. He's almost a perfect fit for them. And he's racking up numbers and stats and whatnot. And Gibbons has been a nice compliment to him. Kayvon Wallace has kind of stepped up a little bit since he's moved from he got cut from Arizona out of the blue and he went to Tennessee. He's helped a little bit with Elijah. He's basically knocked out Elijah Molden in that regard. So they've had moments where, as a defense, they've got some decent pieces in there, but like they really needed someone like Harold Landry to do more. They needed those guys to kind of, Landry's kind of been on the precipice. I know he had a season-ending injury last year. I think you need guys like that to take that next step, and it looks like as a collective they've all come back a little bit. But the Titans, for a team that is a kind of a slow team that don't really blow teams out of the water, to be giving up the third most receptions per week to wide receivers, you kind of sit there going, something's not right with that picture, and they're going to have to address that sooner than later. And we'll see what they do. They're going to be in a decent position to draft maybe the best cornerback. Who knows? There could be a Sauce Gardner in this year's draft, and they might take that guy, and who knows where they're at.
That's true, yeah. But I think for this year, though, and maybe that's it. It's the secondary allows big plays. If the blitz can't get home, they're susceptible to giving up the big plays. But in a short area like red zone or goal line passing defense, that's where they actually have been pretty good. Sorry.
They can't they hold up. You look at like Autry, Simmons, Shire. They got some Landry. They got some good pieces in there. They've got some good pieces in there. It's just maybe it's not the right thing. Maybe it's not the right scheme for them. Maybe they need to look at that. It's not going to happen for them. So I don't know. Either way, good team, decent team. It just feels like they're a piece or two away from being on top of that division. And you look at a Gardner Minshew and a banged up Trevor Lawrence. Okay, in Houston, they've kind of, I think it's fair to say they've over-exceeded expectations for this year. Like, they're not that far off. That division is still a cluster.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, like you said, the defense is still pretty good in spite of maybe the weaknesses giving up big plays to the pass defense, as I was mentioning with the goal line stuff. The pass defense has only allowed 3 passing touchdowns all year from inside their 5. 33% rate, which is one of the lowest in the league. Bottom 10 in terms of percentage of allowed touchdowns. And their run defense is also really good there too, 31%. So
the run defense has been all right this year. Like, you can't argue with them being okay. This is why they're going under in most of their games. Like, I get it. Mm-hmm. I just think the problem that they have this week is that they've got Miami, and they're going to force the issue in that regard.
They're the type of team that can score big. And so in that sense, I get Jamie thinking, that's where the touchdowns are going to come. It won't be short yardage touchdowns. They might actually be held to field goals in the red zone. But if the Dolphins do find the end zone, it's probably on big plays, which likely comes either from either their main wide receivers, although we have seen them had big play run plays from Achane. So I was super high on Achane this week. Yeah. So my initial instinct was to actually go for either Achane or Mostert on a touchdown prop as opposed to the receivers, because that has been a Dolphins tendency. They've scored 61% on goal line plays rushing. They've only scored 38% on goal line plays passing. That's inside the opponent's 5-yard line. So when they get close, they've been a lot more efficient on the ground, although they have passed quite a lot. So opportunity. So it's back and forth, but I do think it makes sense, Jamie, to say that for that Waddle touchdown. So if you're doing a parlay, that might be a good one to throw in there to really lower the odds on it. So yeah, long way to make sense. For Gladys's prop. So one of the things we did look back at Gladys, everything she'd chosen this year. The position she selected from the most was quarterback. And so we gave her one. This will be her 6th prop selected from the quarterback position. And she has gone on especially low total rush yards. She's done that in the past. So Tua Tagovailoa, 3.5 rush yards higher. That does seem like a Gladys prop that she was like, honestly, I was almost tempted that way too. But yeah, hopefully Gladys enjoys that one. Anything else to say about this game, Dan?
That's the most Gladys prop we could think of. A quarterback going over 3 yards.
Get to that 4th rushing yard. Get to that
4th rushing. The thing is, I feel like we've done it dirty because it's come down to 2.5. But we're going to give it a 3. She would have seen 3.5 and gone, yeah, you can do that. I mean, listen, they've got a good pass rush, right? So maybe he gets around. Maybe he does like a 4th and 1 3 times. Who knows? So, or 3.5 times. So that's what
4 times.
4 times, and we're going from that.
All right, so we'll get to the Green Bay Packers -6 on the road. All right, let's end here, Dan, with the road favorite. We've seen so much of that this year. against the New York Giants. So here we go, Dan and I head to head, our favorite teams. The higher lower is set at 36. And honestly, actually, let's flip this around. Let's start talking props first, because we're talking quarterback rush yards. As tempting as Tua was at 3.5, I decided to triple that number. Jordan Love at 9.5 rush yards. He's actually done it quite a bit this year. What was the number? I think he's done it 9 times. He's gone over that and only gone under that 3 times. So
I saw this. I went, who's he running away from? He's not going to have to run away from the imaginary Giants pass rush.
That's the one thing, is that if he just throws everything and doesn't have any pressure, then yeah, he might have 0 attempts. This might be one of those games where he goes lower, but I could also see it being, they've given me this easy first down that I can run for. There's 10 yards, right? Like that could happen on one play in theory. So I like the low, just like Gladys. I like these low quarterback totals. I like taking from quarterback stats too. So Jordan Love higher than 9.5 rush yards.
He's not even going to take 9.5 steps laterally today. He's not.
Well, you know what? Maybe he'll feel, and that's why he'll feel safe rushing, because he knows the Giants can't even tackle him anyway. So he'll have no problem. Just these are easy yards. I'll pick up. I won't go to my receivers and have them get tackled potentially. Let's just run this as much as possible, whether it's me or AJ Dillon. So I'll join you on that.
I'm just looking at that going, I saw that and I got a chuckle. I thought, there's no way that's even an issue. I think I don't imagine he will have to worry about anything in that regard. My prop for the Giants at home to the Packers this week, somehow, some way, I'm actually going a receiver for the Giants, and I can't believe I'm doing that because old mate Julian DeVito's under center for the Giants, whatever his name is.
I think it's Tommy or Tony or Tiki. I was listening to the Tiki Barber podcast.
I don't know, whatever his name is. Old mate DeVito's under center, and I'm worried as hell that obviously, like, he had a couple good passing games a week or two ago against Washington. Like we're talking about Washington, probably the worst secondary of the NFL. Like, I know Cam Curl and the rest is shit. So yes, he had a good game against Washington. Yeah, I mean, Zach Wilson probably would too. It's not really a high benchmark in that regard. So yeah, I'm going to go with a Giants receiver. I feel like the last month, he's kind of been a guy who has had to step up and do more. And I'm glad that he's doing more, because obviously everyone had high hopes for him. Higher, lower, Paris Campbell under one time.
Lower. If it's still available, go lower, because he's actually inactive tonight, so he won't even get one target.
There you go. Well, I mean, he's still a chance at that point. DeVito might throw it to him at some point through the game.
Yeah, he's on the sideline. That's how accurate the pass will be. It'll end up being a target for the inactive player.
I mean, I'm going to go with a prop for a guy. I think he's had to step up because obviously a certain player came in through free agency and took everything away and got 0 reps. And it's weird because last year he felt like a guy that you thought could do better this year. Dan Bellinger is a guy that I'm looking at this week. Against New England, had a quiet game, although that was a bit of a dogfight. But you're looking at Washington, 38 receiving yards. Dallas again, at Dallas, 34 receiving yards. The Vegas Raiders, 43 receiving yards. He's not going to go over a few targets here or there, but they will get it on him on 3rd and long. They will have a look at him in that regard. So I saw 14.5 as, look, he might have 1 reception, 2 receptions, but that might cover it as a whole as it is. You also look at how the Packers kind of set up in their regard. Like, even if Alexander's out, they got enough good players in coverage there to kind of pick up a little bit of his slack in that regard. The guy that I was huge on last year was Jonathan Owens, and he's come in and he's done incredibly well fitting into what Packers secondary over the past month or so with other players out. It's a shame about Alexander being out, but I don't think they'll have much trouble containing a guy like Darius Slayton. Now, the Giants do have speed on their side. And they have got, I mean, Jalen Hyatt's what, a 4.25 guy, 4.3 guy. Slayton's quick as well. Wan'Dale Robinson, shifty. And Saquon is always a threat no matter what. And he's been, at least in some regard, he's been okay the last few weeks for what it could be. It could have been an absolute mess. But Saquon's been all right for what's being asked of him. Like, they're asking him to literally run through a wall every week. And he's trying to do it every week. Like, good for him. So I'm looking at a guy like Bellinger who could literally be the odd man out this week for the Giants. He could be a guy that's free on those long plays, and that's all it's going to take. And look, you're looking at a 2-minute offense. If we ever get close to that, he could be a guy that moves the chains a bit. So, could be
Yeah, 14 and a half receiving yards. He can get that in one drive.
And that's what I'm saying. Like two, 3 catches. He might go 2 for 20 and 1 for 15, 3 for 30. That's kind of where we're at with him. I don't think anyone should be expecting much more from him, but I feel like that's where he could be this week as a low volume option play. Because I look at some of the other Giants options and it was like, how do we gauge Jalen Hyatt? How do we gauge Jalen Wan'Dale Robinson? How do we gauge Darius Slayton? And then you look at the Packers side of things, it's like, no Watson. Okay, so Dubs is there, but now you're asking a lot of him. Reed is there. Okay, well, you're asking a lot of him. Maybe they get Dontavian Wicks and I like the other guy that they got coming in, Malik Heath.
Malik Heath, yeah.
I think he's been really good. I've picked him up in a couple of leagues. I think.
Same here.
I think
when Hill was questionable earlier in the week, I kind of had him as the emergency. Well, if I can't play anyone and replace Hill, I'll play Heath. But Hill's obviously claimed.
I've looked at a couple of guys like. You've got to be really optimistic about what the Packers are doing at this point, because I remember you go back a few years, they had like James Jones, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, and they were in their mid to late 20s, right? But on the outskirts of that was a young guy called Devontae Adams. You look at how they're building now, and it's like Dubs looks okay, Watson looks okay, Reed looks okay. You can get some of these fourth or fifth like string wide receivers there. One of them can step up, and a guy like Wicks is a guy that I like. I think he's been pretty good. I've picked him up in a few leagues too, but. It's just this game seems so friggin' raw. I looked at this and I went, I don't want any piece of this. So I'm going to take the lowest option, the least volatile option. I'm going with that. That's how I felt about it.
I will say, like, looking at this game, the most appealing stats all happen to be yards. Whether it's, you mentioned Bellinger's receiving yards. I liked all of Jordan Love's yards props. I went with the 9.5 rush yards, but 223 passing. 223.5 passing was also very tempting.
I'll tell you what. So we were talking about AJ Dillon because his props have come in, and I'll tell you something about this. You got to look at Love's props of 223 passing and go, how did they get to 63.5 rushing for Dillon? 63.5 for AJ Dillon. I don't feel like he's done that at all. I don't remember the last time he's done that, with or without. I'm struggling to remember when he's done that.
I'm looking that up right now. I am too, because he isn't a big yards accumulator. Like he'll have success if he's getting touchdowns.
I'll give you
64.5.
Yeah, like 63.5. But I like Dillon.
Well, he did have 73 yards last week, so.
Was it 73 yards last week? Yeah. I'm looking at receiving. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry.
73. 70 against the Steelers, and then 76 against the Raiders. So he's only done it 3 times this year, to your credit.
So it's not that aggressive.
I know that Raiders game where he did get 76, Aaron Jones did not play that game. The Steelers game where he got 70, though, I think Jones was in that. So
I don't think they're going to have to worry about him at all. And you know what the dumb thing about this is? I could see them working in Kenyon Drake.
Oh, like, that's right, Kenyon Drake. I love Kenyon Drake. I'm so happy he's on the Packers. I don't really care for fantasy, but it's fun. I always like Kenyon Drake.
I could just see him getting like...
Be better than James Robinson.
I could just see him coming in and getting way too many carries than necessary.
Because they probably think, the 6-point spread, right? The Packers probably feel confident in that.
I am actually a Patrick Taylor stan. Thank you very much. I did write an article about him for going for 2.5 years ago. It's in the database there somewhere. So, yeah.
I'm sure if you look at Patrick Taylor on Going for 2, there's probably only one article written on him, so you'll get access. Go to goingfor2.com, folks, to get all sorts of cutting-edge Patrick Taylor talk.
I'm telling you, it was in like I'm telling you, it was in like a game plan of the week article, and it was something in there. I wrote about him, and since then I've like tracked his career in that regard. I'm like, man,
there isn't much to track, so easy to keep track.
I feel like you go back to his career at Memphis, and like you sit there going, he was better than Pollard. He was better than Antonio Gibson. He was better than those guys.
Darrell Henderson. Who else was there?
He was the better running back.
And yet he's got the least amount of opportunities in the NFL.
That's it. He goes to Green Bay and he's just been squashed. And it's like...
Yeah, squashed by 2 giant quads.
He was better than like all... You look at the Memphis running backs, he was better than all of them. And you're like, damn, how did he get hammered behind that? And it's like, well... Here we go. Here we are talking about Kenyon Drake and Patrick Taylor on a Monday night game for Green Bay versus the Giants. That's where we're at.
Yeah, let's shed some light on the main running back of the game, Saquon Barkley. What are the other tendencies Gladys had? 4 times this year had picked running back props, and very clear when they were higher yards, she'd like to go lower. When the yards were lower, she'd like to go higher. So, for instance, she went higher on Jaleel McLaughlin, 27 and a half combined yards one week, and then Ty Chandler, 32 and a half rush yards. And she didn't hit on either of those. However, the ones where she has hit on running back props, she has gone lower. Jamal Williams, which this is crazy that they had this as a week 2 line, Dan. Jamal Williams, 74 and a half combined yards, which he hasn't even come close to hitting once this year. So it's funny that the perception of him so early, Gladys was on it, going lower, and then lower than Najee Harris, 52 and a half rush yards. So
I put money on it. That's the game Williams got hurt.
Yeah, but again, even in all his healthy games, he still didn't get any. He probably is total this year combined for that amount. But so we gave her another running back going lower on high yardage. Saquon Barkley, 94 and a half rushing and receiving yards combined, and she's taking the lower there. Again, that does seem like a Gladys prop, though. She's had that tendency.
Yeah, we feel like she would go lower, and we tried to give her the biggest buffer because Barkley's receiving has been not the greatest. Like, it's something that
that was an Eli Manning thing. He's never come close to catching the ball as much as he did with Eli.
It really hasn't. I can't wait for them to just oh man, I hope for his career they just let him go at some point. They got to do something with him. Like they got to get him out of the. They got to get him out of the facility.
Especially if they take another quarterback and they waste a bunch of money at the backup, Daniel Jones, they're going to have to save money elsewhere.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to draft the quarterback.
Yeah. They're probably committed / screwed. But
so
yes.
So in the last 3 games, he's had 12, 29, 5 receiving yards. Before that, 41, 0, 23, -5, and 57. So he's been all over the shop. You can run on Green Bay. I don't think we're, the bend don't break defense that Green Bay has. I don't think that's really a surprise for anyone in that regard. So he could get there rushing in some capacity, and that's why we looked at the 70 and a half rushing, I think it was. And we looked at it and went, he could probably do that. I don't think that's, especially with Quay Walker out, go pick up Isaiah McDuffie. If you've got I'm going to go pick up McDuffie. Go pick up McDuffie. Quick, go get him.
Probably get the volume, yeah, or not. But yes, so talking about the 36, the game total. Now, we mentioned Gladys had taken more higher than lower this year, so we gave her the higher on both games. But higher on a 36, tempting enough for me to take it. Mister who usually goes lower on everything, but at 36, I think the Packers offense can even on themselves come close to that 36. Now they won't get to 30 because they've scored 30 points once this year, and it was against the Chicago Bears. So let's maybe throw that out. But the Packers, I think realistically can get to 26, 29. I think the Giants have 10 points in them. So because I remember that one week where the Giants, with Tommy DeVito starting, they had 11, I think it was 11.75 as an implied total on the Monday opening line. They hit it. They hit the over, which for such a low line, you'd expect them to hit the over. So I think they have at least 10 points in them. So I think the Packers can get to 26, 27. The Giants get to 10. It covers this 36. That would be my logic there.
The kid's first start was at Dallas. Like, that's just crazy.
Yeah, and that's why it was so low, right? It was the Cowboys. And again, he put up 17 on them. So if you can put up 17 on the Cowboys, I think he can maybe do that against the Packers. So
yeah, I'm not sure how much of that was him, but let's have a look at this. Let's break this down for the people listening. We're going to look at the Packers 6-6 this year. Here's their record: 2-4 on the road. Against the spread, 7-5, 3-3 as an away team. Over under this year is 6-6 as a total, but 4-2 over on the road. So we like that. We like seeing that on the road they go over, and we like that they are, decent as an away team. They're a team that they'll play. They're going to sit there on their laurels in that regard. The Giants are 8-4 this year, 2-3 at home. Against the spread, 4-7-1, 2-2-1 as home dogs, which, being a home underdog 5 times is just devastating. And over under 3-9 under. So 0-5 is an under as well at home as a home underdog. So we know that they go under at home. We know that the Packers can at least keep up their end of the bargain. That's kind of why I went over on this one as well. I thought it's a low enough total for the Packers to have to make them chase. And I like the idea that the run game might not be there for the Packers, obviously. I'm not sold on A.J. Dillon. I think I've mentioned that a few times. I like the idea of them having to go through the air. We know the Giants like to give it up through the air. This could be a faster-paced game than we think. I really think, I mean, this is great for Kenny Clark. I think he might get that sack at half a sack. He might be a guy that we look at this week as well. But I thought in that regard that, as bad as the Giants have looked, I mean, look at what the Patriots, they beat the Patriots 10-7. Look what they did to the Chargers a week ago. Like, they do this to people, right? Like, so I'm not really worried about that. I think Green Bay are a better team than Washington. I don't think that's saying anything out of the ordinary. But if you're talking about a team like Washington who like to go through the air, that don't have the best run game, I mean, Robinson's okay. He's good. But Washington will go through the air, and if Green Bay take that route, the Giants kind of kept up with Washington, and they made them, they punished them towards the end of the game anyway. And we've seen what happens to Green Bay. Like, jokingly, I've brought back that Atlanta game I mentioned the Atlanta game a few times, and obviously it was early in the year. I think it was round 1, round 2, but
week 2,
yeah, like at the same time, like
they blew a 12-point lead basically in one quarter.
And they let a bad passer like Desmond Ridder go through the air on him, and
he was really quick. Like, some of these possessions were like 40 seconds long, and it's like, what?
I'm worried that Green Bay might give DeVito a sniff, and that's a problem for them in that regard. But
even the Lions, they let the Lions score in the final minute to make it 29-22, right? So yeah,
that's it. So I can kind of see the Giants at least.
It took an interception on Mahomes to not let them score at the end of the fourth. The only turnover in the game.
Like 7, the Packers win by a touchdown probably, but as a home underdog, it's hard to go up. It's hard to go past those home dogs. I kind of feel like that's a hard thing to do, and I think 2 games in a row the Giants are. I got one for you. Here's one for you, Kyle. I've seen this. The Giants at the moment are a top 5 pick. The Giants with a win are 1 game out of the playoffs. So you look at where they're at. Like, both conferences have a lot of teams between 7 and 5 wins right now. It's such shambles at the moment because a win, they jump Washington, right? And they're in the mix with Seattle and Green Bay again, who they'll then have a win over. They're in the mix with teams as a playoff wild card, which is
because Green Bay currently has the 7th seed at 6-6. So they lose, the 7th seed will be 6-7.
We can pump the brakes on the Giants' schedule because they play Philly twice in the last 3 or 4 weeks. But besides that, it's also one of those things where you sit there going, Giants could win 2 or 3 games the rest of the way. Like, they win tonight, they go 2 from 4. Like, they're kind of in the mix, which is the worst possible scenario for the Giants, to win 2 games and not make the playoffs and lose draft capital. That would be the absolute shits, which is the most Giants thing that could happen. But at the same point, like, you're looking at them going, they're currently a top 5 pick and they're 1 game out of the playoffs, 1 game with a win out of the playoffs. So you sit there going, well, as bad as they are, we have to recognize that they're not dead yet. And that's a problem for Green Bay. If they walk into the Giants on a Monday night, it's not that the cold should affect Green Bay, but let me tell you, the weather out here the last weekend has been miserable. We've had like wind alerts, rain alerts. It's been the shits. It's one of those things where, like, you sit there going, if Green Bay aren't careful and they are an inexperienced team, and we have seen them blow leads and we have seen them get caught, this could be a game that they get dragged into that they don't want to. And I'm worried for Green Bay in that regard because they don't want that. You don't want the New York crowd on your back on a Monday night in the wet, the cold, the rain with a home underdog. You don't want that. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, and that's fair. And then, I guess, going with our allegiances. So Dan is taking the Giants as 6-point underdogs. Tell by the outfit, I'm picking the Packers, 6-point favorites. So yeah, we'll see what they're there. And then Gladys makes the impartial pick with the Giants as well. Again, she's picked a lot more underdogs this year than she has favorites. So we gave her 2 underdogs in these contests.
Oh, here we go.
Higher on the 36, and you're going lower on 36. So any reasoning on that?
Oh, Jamie's been stitched up. I would absolutely leave that league. I would leave.
Yeah. Well, we can get to that in a sec. But yeah, did you mention about the higher lower, the 36? So then we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I'm going higher. I look at it and I don't like.
You're going higher? I thought you said you were going lower.
What did I say?
You said lower because we'd be the opposite. We complete opposite. Where I'm going Packers and higher, you're going Giants and lower. Unless you want to change it to higher.
Sorry, I thought it was going to be a dogfight. I actually went with lower. That's what I went with. Giants with the points at under because I feel like this could be a shit show. And
you don't think the Packers will be scoring 26-27. You think they'll go back to the Falcons game where they couldn't eclipse 20.
You need Romeo Doubs to not get the dropsies. You need Jalen Reed to take control. You need Wicks and Tucker and Tucker Craft, right? You need him, and you need Heath to kind of step up. You don't have Aaron Jones. You need AJ Dillon to play a commanding role. You need the guys that are filling in for Jay Alexander, Quay Walker. I mean, I like McDuffie. I think he's an incredible backup to have there. But you're looking at these guys hoping that they have to do the work, and then you need Jordan Love to get there without Watson and without Aaron Jones. And I think this is going to be more of a dogfight than we want to see with the conditions that have turned the shit. So, Giants with 6, I think, is not unreasonable. Great.
Right, so just to recap all the picks. So, back to the Titans-Dolphins game, all three of us, Dan, Gladys, who's not here, and myself, we're taking the Titans as 14-point underdogs. Dan and Gladys both going higher than 46.5, while I'm taking the lower. Our player props. Dan has Jalen Waddle, higher than 5 receptions. Gladys has Tua Tagovailoa, higher than 3.5 rush yards. And I have safety Roger McCreary, higher than 4.5 solo plus assisted tackles. And the Go Pack Go game against the Giants.
Giants let's go!
Dan and Gladys both taking the Giants, 6-point underdogs. Go Pack Go. I'm taking the Packers, of course, 6-point favorites. Dan's going lower than 36, while Gladys and I are both going higher than 36. Dan is taking Daniel Bellinger. Dan taking Dan. The tight end, 14.5 receiving yards higher. Gladys has Saquon Barkley lower than 94.5 rushing and receiving yards combined. And I have Jordan Love higher than 9.5 rushing yards. So yeah, you want to get to this question by Jamie. He wants us to know what he thinks about this. So for those listening to the audio, this is a podcast. This is only a live stream, so we don't have to read out for anybody. But he wanted to trade for Minshew. Offered a second, which I think is fair. I actually gave up a second for Minshew in a league as well in a Superflex. I know in the Discord that was going on today. The Going for Two Discord, which everyone can join. Again, go for goingfor2.com. There's a link to the Discord there. The Discord is free. Tons of great conversations happening, including this Jamie chat thread, trade chat thread, whatever stuff he was talking about the trade. A lot of people were saying, a third, give 2/3, and I was like, no, I'm cool giving a second for him. Yes, Jamie had the confidence, made the offer, and the guy basically said in the chat, okay, I've got a second on the table. Is anyone willing to offer me more? And it seems like someone offered him more. So, yeah. Oh, getting the second for Minshew. Okay, so he was trying to buy a quarterback. I see. Okay. That's fair. I read that the complete opposite. My mistake. So he wanted to see what's the best quarterback he could buy for a second. I guess someone else offered a different quarterback. So
I think for what it is, I'll say this now. Minshew for a second with 3 weeks to go, I think that's a little high because Richardson's back. I think that's you're really pushing the envelope on that. And congrats.
The person who'd be willing to my point is, if you're a contender, it's going to be a late second, and you need a quarterback. Like you're not just doing this for depth.
And that's fair. I get it, and I'm fine with that in that regard. But still, blanket it. No one's won anything yet. And I just think for a guy, you could lose next week, and you just lost a second in that regard. So in terms of what this is, I personally wouldn't give a second for Minshew at this point. I'm not the biggest maker. You look at all the quarterbacks that are out this week, just go pick up go get Flacco off waivers. In that regard, if I'm that other guy, I'm just looking at other options at this point.
And the cautionary tale there, Dan, is that league where I gave up a second for Minshew. If Derrick Henry doesn't score, I think it's 26 points tonight, I will not make the playoffs, and that second will be the 204. And in a 10-team league, that's the 14th overall pick. So
I guess that's the risk we play. But in terms of what's happened to him in that regard, that's an absolute stitch up. I would be calling his shit out. I would be going fucking nuts. I would get to the point where Jamie just says down here, I can't leave because I'm defending champ. We pay a year in advance. I would get to the point where the commission wants to kick me out and give me my fees back. I would be going fucking off. That's some dirty shit. You don't stitch up people in trades that way. I'm against it. You don't. Keep it within yourselves offline. That's all you got to do. Don't be a dick and just trade properly. Because at that point, how could you ever go to that guy again and go, hey, let's make him I couldn't go to that person again.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that trade partner's probably burnt. Yeah.
And if that guy came to me, I'd be like, I probably would have blocked them already. The amount of people I've blocked.
Well, what I would do, Dan.
I wouldn't even do it.
What I would be doing is, okay, if they ever came to me with a trade, I'm doing the same thing. Oh, I've got this offer on the table. Someone gets it better. If they want to play that way, I'll play that way too.
I especially with cash leagues as well. I just would be looking at that going, that's fucked up, man. Now I'm someone that you've crossed bridges with it. Depending the size of the league as well. I would be like, I'd be calling him out because how many people would want to move with that guy again as well?
Yeah, that's true, Jamie. So let people in the chat know, in the rest of the league.
Shit, like, hey man, we had this deal in place. That's cool.
Well, now to be fair, this guy doesn't even Jamie doesn't even need to do it because this guy let everyone know publicly. I've got this offer on the table, right? So everyone kind of already knows that.
I'm a fan of the double down. I would be doubling down on that. I'd be like, hey man, we had an agreement in place. You've done this in public, and now what? You're kind of going back on your word. Like, I am not into that. I'd kind of be giving him shit. And if that was me, the commission doesn't see it that way, I'm probably bouncing anyway. But I'm pretty quick to bounce on leagues as well.
You'll pay, even if you have to pay your in advance. Okay, whatever. I already burned the money. It's not even worth the hassle. I'll just leave anyway. And someone gets a free year. But I mean, they probably have to pay the next year in advance anyway.
If you're a defending champion, you're going to the playoffs and you don't want to deal with this shit, I would go and burn every single one of my picks on whatever player I could get and then bounce at the end like everyone else does. I would be losing my freaking mind.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, if you want to, and again, Jamie was trying to acquire a pick, so he's still stuck with Minshew now. So
yeah, then get rid of him. Like, if you don't think you can be in that league, get rid of him. Whatever. I would just be losing my mind.
And I think for the point of Minshew,
bad etiquette. I hate bad etiquette. I hate that. Who does that? Like, hey, I want a better deal than this. Like, then why engage? Just say I don't want the deal and we're going to look elsewhere. Like, you don't have to do that in your group chat. It's just
to be fair, one thing I'll do is if someone makes me an offer and I think I can do better, I'll go out and send offers. Like, I'll try. And so
we can peel the curtain back. Kyle, me and you have gone back on trades in our league, and I'll flat out go, Kyle, what are you doing? Like, this is terrible. I will tell you if it's a terrible trade.
Yeah, no, you're pretty straightforward. You rant about it.
I'll say, Kyle, stop. What are you doing? And I'll tell you that. But, like, if I've sent you a trade, you'll do the same thing back. But there's an understanding between the two of us. But on the odd time that we have made a trade, it's easy to do. Whether you think you can get a better deal or not doesn't matter. It's at that point, like, if you're good to your league.
Well, to be fair, like, I remember shopping Brandon Ayuk to a few people, and so you made the offer, and I went, and okay, can I get something better for Ayuk? And no, so then I accepted your offer.
You flat out told me, like, I think I can get a better offer elsewhere. I'm like, go for it. That's my offer.
And then I couldn't, so then I made the deal anyway, so leverage there. But
I don't care. Like,
I guess at least transparent, right?
If you think you can get more, God bless. I remember I went to I think it was Brad. I think I went to Brad. Brad's a really good trade as well, to be fair. Like, you've done well with him. I know our league was his first dynasty league. He's done really well with that. I remember I went to him for Christian Kirk. I'm like, this is what I'm going to offer you for Christian Kirk. I remember I said that to him, and I feel like he said the same thing. I think I can get better. I'm like, okay, just leave it in your inbox. Accept it or don't. I don't care. Like, that's what it is. Go from there. The ball's in your court. I don't care. That's my offer. I don't like, if I feel like I've given you fair value, and I think it was like the 202 at that point as well. If I feel like I might have given him 2-2s, something weird like that. It was like 2-2s. It was like a 20-24.
Or a 2 and a 2-2 at will.
Yeah, no, it was, no 2-2 out on my Morris's mate. But it was one of those things where I was like, okay, well, that's my offer, and if you want it, take it. If you don't, I don't care. It's fine. Like, I don't go find better if you can get better. If you think you can get better than a 2-2 for a guy who hasn't broke out yet, go for it. Like, have at it. I don't care. I don't take offense to it, but you want to do it publicly in your group chat, man, fuck that guy. Like, I'm not into that. I could get better than this.
Put the effort in to go make those trades. Okay, what are the quarterbacks I would go buy for a second and go make those offers to those specific people as opposed to just like let it all come to you?
Don't post the trade. How about this? For that other guy, don't post the trade that you and Jamie had in place. Say, hey guys, I really need a quarterback. I want to give up a second for it. Can someone please I'll accept something that's decent. Like that. I've done that before, and some of the trades I've been sent are just fantastic. Some of them are shit, but some of them are fantastic. Like, say, so I got a second on the block. I need a quarterback for those who want to get rid of one. If you're tanking, I'm the guy you want to see at this point. If you've got an extra one that you want to cash out on, I'm fine. It could be a Matthew Stafford at that point. Could be. Who knows? It could be something. You might get better than Gardner Minshew, but you don't have to like say this is something better than Gardner Minshew and Jamie's pick out there. I don't like that. Be a bit more vague. Be a bit more coy. Protect your league mates, because at that point, what do you want to do with people like that?
Because it's kind of like, okay, these are private negotiations that you're making public all of a sudden, even though it's just the result of the negotiation.
He got Trubisky for a fourth. Like, and I get that. Like, cool. You got Trubisky for a fourth, who you would have zero confidence starting heading into a playoffs.
Why didn't he just? And then my wonder is, why did they just make that offer in the first place? if you were really looking to buy thirds and fourths for quarterback, why didn't you go at those? Okay,
Why
Mitch
give him credit?
Trubisky. I don't know. Is Davis Mills going to start? Like, go to there first. Why
would you
even
give up?
send the Minshew offer in the first place?
What would you give up for Joe Flacco or Jake Browning right now?
Again, if I need to start a quarterback, I'm fine giving like easily a third,
Right. So like, they're better options than Mitch Trubisky.
and they're likelier to start the whole year. Like Trubisky is just there until Pickett's back.
Like, so what are you
But
doing?
that's also why he's a fourth and not. Yeah, I'd much rather have Minshew. But if you're telling me Trubisky, I get Trubisky in a second or Minshew in a fourth.
At this point,
I
like,
get why he wants Trubisky there because, like, Trubisky, I think he outscored Minshew this week.
again, you're talking about if this guy thinks he's a contender and can do well in the playoffs, then you're talking about a late third for Jake Browning, who's averaging, what, 25, 30 points a game?
Yeah,
I'll
for sure.
take that.
It doesn't look like the finger thing is much of a. Like, apparently, it was finger cramps. It's not like he dislocated his hand like every other quarterback.
I'll eat that third, and then I'll go to the guy that has Burrow and say, look, you've seen what this guy can do.
Yeah, next year and try and regain the third.
Give me
No.
not even a third.
Almost renting the third.
Yeah, take a hit, take a fourth. I'll take the hit on the loss. You know what he can do. Whatever, just give me something back. It didn't work out.
You have him for this year, used him for this
There
year
you
when
go.
you need him most in the playoff game, and then next year.
There you go.
Now, to Jamie's question here, we can end with this. Gardner Minshew, do we think he'll be starting next year? I did look it up. He is a free agent, so he could sign anywhere he wants to next year.
I think it's in his best interest to stay.
The way
It's obviously, like, he had Steichen in Philly, and he followed him to Indy, and he knows he's got a quarterback in front of him that took 2 injuries in 4 games. And the way he plays,
I was 3 and 5, but still the percentages aren't great.
yeah, like you're talking about a guy who fits an offense, who has worked well with Pierce and Pittman and Downs and Taylor and Zach Moss. He's done a job. He's been competitive. Again, you talk about the AFC South, and there's teams that are pieces away from being a piece away, right? And they're that team. And like for the Colts, like they looked really good with Anthony Richardson. If he doesn't come back as healthy or as he could be, because like a shoulder injury is tricky, right? You know, Minshew might find it in his best interest to stay, and that's not the worst thing to do because you're on a team that you know you can win with, and you're probably going to up your market base anyway. The team you're at, like how many teams can you go to and say, I'll take like the veteran, I'll take $5 million to stay here for a year?
I feel like it'll be similar roles, right? We're going to draft a quarterback, but if he's not ready, we want you to start, and if he ever gets injured, we want you to start. But we'll never make it like you're starting the whole season for like right from training camp. It's all years. This 1 year red shirting.
Say New England draft a quarterback. They've already got Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, who are cheap as shit anyway, right? Then you're looking at a team like, I don't think Chicago are going to do wrong by Justin Fields. I don't think so. You're looking at maybe Minnesota. He's going to go to Minnesota. He's going to go to Minnesota for a year. Why? Like, you look around the
to be there before, while Cousins is recovering. But if he goes there, the idea is as soon as Cousins is healthy and ready to go, he's back in and you're on the bench. Right?
I just don't see the point. I've been maintaining since day one. I don't think the Cardinals are going to get away from Kyler Murray. He's looked fantastic since he's come back as well. Why would they do that for? With all that money that they're going to eat for a prospect that may be good?
Well, they might not even get a Drake May or a Caleb Williams. Like if they win enough games.
Look at the hit rate of some of these quarterbacks in the first round over the past few years.
Ask the Cardinals about Josh Rosen.
Oh man,
he was supposed to be the most pro ready.
You're looking at Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, all in one draft, and Trevor Lawrence. We could say he's a little shaky. I don't think we're out of the realm of saying.
There was a point where everyone was saying Davis Mills was the best quarterback in that class.
Dude, let me tell you something. Gardner Minshew, the draft class that he was in, he was the best quarterback that year with Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones. He was the best quarterback that year. He was the best quarterback that year as rookie. His stats were ridiculous, but you're looking at it going, why would he continually go and find these places where he may or may not get a game? He may as well stay in Indianapolis where he knows that if something happens to Richardson, he's going to win a lot of games and he's going to get paid a lot of money. Or he can go and sit on the bench and just be like, well...
I do wonder...
Where's he going to go? Tennessee? If they're not going to draft another quarterback, we'll let us...
you're
looking at maybe Las Vegas. So you're going to go to Las Vegas and go through that shit show? Yeah. Who else? There's not a lot of teams like the Giants, maybe. By the way that the
it'll be the same thing with Kirk Cousins, right? Okay, while Jones is recovering, you're starting, but then back to the bench when he's healthy.
is he a better backup than Jacoby Brissett? If Washington signed one, I don't know. I don't think so.
Probably,
Like,
but yeah, you're right.
Same ballpark. Like, it's just.
I guess the idea if Minshew re-signs with the Colts, Jamie, I would look at the Richardson manager. Can you sell? Can you get a couple thirds next year for them having that handcuff? I wonder if that's possible.
Not the end. You want to probably get rid of Minshew. I understand that. A second, I think, is aggressive for me. But Hicks, get something back for a guy who's probably.
Well, again, that might have been the one manager willing to buy Minshew for a second, and now he lost it. I think, and so I understand why Jamie's kind of annoyed, upset with that, because there probably isn't a ton of people marching down the door for that price.
I would be dirty on that. I would be filthy.
All right, well, we'll end the episode feeling dirty and filthy as the Packers are about to play the Giants and also the Dolphins and Titans. But Dan, this was so this was supposed to be the season finale. We were going to go out with a bang, all three co-hosts, doubleheader. Gladys wasn't on. She and I might actually end up doing a show next week, but you will be unavailable. So this is for sure your last episode of the Monday Night 2-Point Conversion in 2023. I know you and I, at the very least, are planning to do a January show. I believe it's January 15th, where they have the Monday Night Football playoff game.
Should be able to do that, yes. Hopefully, yes. I will be on vacation, pending my flight not crashing and burning. I should be here. You can never know. Swiss Alps. Oh, get a little rocky up there. White knuckling the whole way. No good. But no, it's been a fantastic. I think we've had a pretty good year this year. We've been probably a bit more.
All of us are above 500 currently on our picks.
Yeah, I think the best thing is this year we've all kind of come across a process of what works for us and how we go about our picks, and we've found probably more patterns. Like even picking Gladys's picks today, we've gone, well, this is what her trend is. This is what we know she does. She probably would have done this, and we can feel comfort knowing. Okay, she might not have liked the pick, but she might have picked it anyway. And we're in the ballpark in that regard, and that's good to see. Like, we all have a trend with what we do, and that's the whole point of this. Like, that's where gambling lies, right? Within the trends and the trenches. That's kind of the cool thing with it. So I think we've had a good year, and I think we've done relatively well throughout. And yeah, can't argue with what we've done this year. We've done pretty well. Sad to not have had the doc throughout the year, but what can you do?
Yeah, so we'll see if Doc makes a glorious return next year. Even if it's just 1 or 2 episodes, that's still great too. But yeah, appreciate everyone who's hung out with us all through the season. It is the season after all. Jamie's here tonight, but yeah, we've had tons of great people all throughout the year throwing comments in the chat. Again, Going for 2 live YouTube stream. Be sure to subscribe, like the videos, comment under each videos after the fact. It really helps us out. Feed the algorithm monster, as another co-host or one of the Going for 2 live hosts, Brian Ford, says often. But on behalf of Dan and the absent Gladys, I am Kyle Senra, and unless Dan has a final rant,
no.
Okay, then this is.
I've said enough about Patrick Mahomes. Go fuck yourself. That's it. I'm signing out on that for the.
It's a great way to end the Monday Night 2-Point Conversion. Bye.